What if Hollywood's most enchanting fairy tale was secretly built on horror and silence? Nicole Kidman, graceful on red carpets, glowing with Academy prestige, and fiercely private, has long been seen as untouchable. But behind the polished image lies a chilling narrative that once left even seasoned investigators visibly shaken. Tonight, we tear the seal off a story buried beneath glamour and denial. Dr. Anthony Kidman was once hailed as a brilliant mind in Australia's psychological and academic circles, a respected clinician and researcher with accolades to his name. On paper, he was the embodiment of integrity and intellect, but scattered court records and harrowing testimonies from survivors paint a far more disturbing image. A man accused of leading a covert network of child abuse, preying on those he was meant to protect. His sudden, suspicious death in Singapore on September 12, 2014 was framed as a tragic but final chapter. Yet the scandal it supposedly ended refuses to stay buried. Central to this haunting tale is Fiona Barnett, a survivor who turned whistleblower, claiming that Dr. Kidman played a major role in an underground society that exploited minors for the world's most influential elites. Her testimony isn't idle conspiracy, it's documented in sworn statements submitted to Australian authorities, the Royal Commission, and echoed through multiple media platforms. Fiona recounts being subjected to horrific hunting games, starting at just 3 years old, where children were released into the wilderness and pursued like prey. Armed men tracked them, hungry attack dogs followed. Fiona recalls the chilling sound of rifle bolts locking as children around her collapsed. "Any kid I couldn't protect," she states, "was torn apart by the dogs." Unbelievable? Maybe, until you consider the timeline. Barnett's final official complaint was filed in early August 2014. A few weeks later, Dr. Kidman flew to Singapore, booked a room at the elite Tanglin Club, and was declared dead shortly after breakfast. Initial reports claimed a heart attack. Later, authorities changed the story to a fatal fall. Two conflicting causes, no clear explanation, and absolutely no forensic transparency. Singapore police deemed the death unnatural, but released no further details. Nicole Kidman, reportedly present during the trip, issued no heartfelt tribute, no public statement, only a single-line request for privacy. A fitting end, perhaps, for a man whose life was shrouded in secrecy. But the darkness didn't begin in Singapore, and it certainly didn't end there. Fiona alleges that powerful figures in law enforcement, politics, and the judiciary are part of what she refers to as the Ninth Circle, a shadowy cult conducting ritualistic abuse in remote parts of Australia. She describes her 14th birthday at Dr. Kidman's coastal residence. Cocaine displayed on platters, high-level entertainment figures conversing poolside, and the moment when all but 2 guests left, leaving her alone with Kidman and renowned director John Bell. Fiona says she was assaulted, held underwater, and nearly drowned while locked in a jiu-jitsu hold. "Do you remember yet?" he shouted, each time she gasped between plunges. The next day, she woke bound to a chair in a basement, with a young Nicole Kidman, then rising to fame, standing by with crossed arms and a cold, silent stare. Shocking? Absolutely. Proven? Not in any criminal court. Yet journalists couldn't ignore the sheer volume of Fiona's detail: property addresses, full names, police badge numbers. Senator Bill Heffernan even waived a sealed dossier during a 2015 Senate session, claiming it listed 28 elite suspects, including a former prime minister. Reporters demanded answers. The list was classified for operational reasons. And just like that, inquiries stalled. But that wasn't the whole story. The Kidman saga tightens when you realize how perfectly Dr. Anthony's profession camouflaged predation. Psychiatrists prescribe mind-altering meds, maintain clinical privilege, and move easily between hospitals and academic conferences. Prime hunting grounds for vulnerable kids. Brain drug pharmaceutical pusher, one skeptic scoffed, with built-in access to children looking for help. Combine that with generational wealth, cushy university posts, and A-list Hollywood connections, and you have a predator nobody suspects, until it's far too late. Sloan points viewers to Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's final film starring Nicole Kidman. The plot? A secret society of masked elites engaging in occult rituals behind gilded doors. Kubrick died days after submitting his first cut. Conspiracy circles claim studio executives trimmed 24 minutes deemed too revealing. Did Nicole channel family demons on screen? Maybe it was pure coincidence. Maybe method acting drags real-life shadows into the frame. Online sleuths revived Anthony Kidman's allegations during Balenciaga's 2022 ad scandal, using it as Exhibit A in Hollywood Protects Child Predators threads. Hashtags like NAR, Eyes Wide Open, and Kidman Cult trended for days. PR teams scrambled. Nicole issued a terse statement condemning the brand's imagery, but critics called it hollow given her own unresolved family rumors. Meanwhile, Fiona Barnett's testimony keeps popping up in unexpected places. Tiny podcasts, alternative media documentaries, leaked Senate transcripts. Each appearance adds a new puzzle piece. The rainforest picnic table, where 6-year-old Fiona was tied spread eagle, the code phrase Kidman allegedly recited while dunking her in the pool. The moment she saw him board a Qantas flight the morning after she filed her 2008 police report. Even her strongest detractors admit her timeline dovetails uncomfortably with Anthony's travel records. Opposing voices exist, of course. Former students praise Dr. Kidman's groundbreaking grief therapy research. Colleagues insist he was gentle, almost shy. An independent medico-legal review in 2016 labeled Fiona's memories implausible, citing lack of physical evidence. But critics forget that cult crimes thrive precisely because evidence is destroyed, witnesses discredited, and victims too traumatized or too young to testify coherently. When bodies don't surface, cases evaporate. Now, if you're finding your pulse racing and your head spinning, breathe. Take a second to process these overlapping allegations, hidden files, and vanishing witnesses. If you believe stories like this deserve daylight, hit that subscribe button right now. Because the more voices we have, the harder it is for powerful people to bury the truth. And drop a comment below. Do you think Hollywood royalty can ever fully escape family sins? Or does the past eventually knock on every mansion door? Your take might just guide our next investigation. But even engagement can't unlock sealed autopsy reports, and that's where Anthony's death becomes the series finale nobody understands. Official statements cite cardiac failure due to hypertensive heart disease, later tweaked to trauma from a fall. Singapore's state pathologist never released the full toxicology panel. Private investigators hired by an Australian tabloid were denied access to CCTV inside the Tanglin Club. The coroner's verdict was stamped. Case closed. 1 month later, Nicole returned to filming Paddington. Cameras rolled. No one asked the tough questions on set. And what happened next would shock everyone. In 2019, a retired homicide detective leaked internal memos from New South Wales police. Although heavily redacted, the papers confirm Fiona Barnett's name appears in at least 7 separate assault reports between 1986 and 2014. Each file was marked, "No further action, insufficient evidence." One margin note, subject names too politically sensitive. Translation, career suicide for any cop who pushed too hard. Enter Senator Heffernan again. During a fiery committee hearing, he described a cultural reluctance within the justice system to prosecute VIPs. He waved a second envelope, transcripts from a secret child abuse Royal Commission session. The chair cut him off. Microphones were killed. Days later, Heffernan's office denied requests for the documents, citing national security. When Sloan reached out, the senator replied via aide, "Keep digging, but watch your back." Conspiratorial? Perhaps, but consider this. Nicole Kidman's production company Blossom Films announced a series adaptation of 9 Perfect Strangers barely a week after those memos surfaced. Brilliant timing to flood search engines with fresh Kidman content unrelated to cult rumors. Publicists call it SEO inoculation, drown old scandals in new market-tested headlines. Victim advocates tried another tactic, civil litigation. In 2021, Barnett and 2 anonymous plaintiffs filed a suit in the New South Wales Supreme Court, aiming to freeze the Kidman estate's Australian assets. The claim alleged damages arising from systematic abuse by the late Dr. Anthony D. Kidman and associated parties. Nicole, as executor of her father's will, was listed nominally. Within 6 months, the case was quietly discontinued with no order as to costs, legalese for a hush-hush settlement, or an arm twist behind chambers. Court staff refused to confirm which. What's undisputed is the money trail. Financial disclosures show Anthony transferred approximately 4.7 million AUD from Sydney to a Singapore trust days before his flight. The trust dissolved within 48 hours of his death, its assets routed through Luxembourg and Delaware. Forensic accountants can't pierce the shell companies without a warrant, and none has been issued. Sloan then examines the psychology of silence. Why would Nicole, a woman celebrated for philanthropic work and UN gender equality speeches, ignore her father's accusers? Crisis managers argue any comment would give tabloids a pull quote. Silence keeps lawyers happy and stock prices stable. Yet for survivors, it reads as complicity. One tweeted, "Nicole Kidman wept on screen for an Emmy, but not once for children her father allegedly destroyed." That post amassed 500,000 likes before disappearing. User account suspended for harassment. Balenciaga outrage. Eyes Wide Shut analysis videos, true crime podcasts dissecting Singapore autopsy records. Each wave of online scrutiny renews the questions. Still, mainstream outlets tread carefully. Dr. Kidman is deceased. Libel laws favor the dead's reputation in many jurisdictions. Publishing unproven allegations invites crippling lawsuits. Where does that leave us? With breadcrumbs, redacted memos, shuttered investigations, conflicting autopsy notes, hush settlements, and one daughter whose career hasn't skipped a beat. It's a house of cards propped up by NDAs and short public memories. But cards quake when enough hands tap the table. Yet the rabbit hole goes even deeper. Scroll back to 1975, the year Fiona's 6th birthday nightmare allegedly unfolded, and you'll find a young Anthony Kidman presenting research on behavioral conditioning at the University of Sydney. He argued that fear can be reset in children through repetitive exposure to controlled trauma, thereby reshaping maladaptive neural pathways. Chilling when you place that paper beside Fiona's description of systematic torture meant to program her responses. Scholars praised the study. None asked where Kidman gathered his data. Fast forward to 1989. Nicole lands her breakout role in Dead Calm. Press junkets gush over her discipline and mature poise. You know she spent evenings calling her father from Los Angeles to discuss character psychology. A sweet detail, or mentoring and emotional manipulation? We can't know. But when Fiona claims teenage Nicole sneered at her during a basement interrogation, the image sticks. A budding star absorbing darkness like stage light. Detractors argue Fiona's memories could be recovered. Memory syndrome, vulnerable to suggestion. True, trauma warps recollection, but that doesn't erase the corporate records of Anthony's flights aligning almost exactly with Barnett's timeline. It doesn't explain the sealed pathology slides in Singapore, or why police labeled his death unnatural before pivoting to cardiac event. It certainly doesn't clarify why Nicole hired the same crisis PR firm that later represented Balenciaga. Eyewitnesses erode, documents vanish, but money leaves a scent. Investigative journalist Madison O'Leary tracked a Luxembourg entity, Starhold Trust, that received the 4.7 million AUD. Starhold dissolved in 2015. Its final transfer hopped through a Delaware LLC tied to Beacon Law Group, coincidentally the firm that finalized Kidman family real estate deals in Nashville. Madison requested comment. Beacon threatened legal action. She posted the letters online anyway. 2 weeks later, her story disappeared from Medium after a privacy complaint. We're left with a choice: chalk everything up to coincidence, or acknowledge smoke often signals fire. Maybe Anthony Kidman was merely an aging academic who died abroad. Maybe Fiona Barnett is chasing ghosts. Maybe Nicole's silence is grief, not guilt. But when allegations echo across 4 decades, 3 continents, and multiple government hearings, skepticism alone feels like denial. If this episode left you with goosebumps, share it. Speak the names no one prints. Ask your local reps why elite abuse inquiries still stall. Evil survives in shadows, sunlight is kryptonite. Because beneath the Hollywood glamour and academic accolades, a single unresolved question remains. Did Dr. Anthony Kidman escape justice by dying, or did justice escape him? The answer may redefine how we see one of cinema's brightest stars and remind us that family secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a habit of clawing to the surface.